All right, welcome everyone to the Essential Credentials Podcast, episode 4. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'm joined by my friend Greg.
Hey, everybody.
And Tanner Jones.
Howdy.
And Tanner, as some of you may know, is the author of a baseball card, Addict, and an amazing book that he's going to talk about. And Tanner somehow managed to stay married after 10,000 baseball cards, but we're really happy to have you in the podcast and really looking forward to our discussions today. We're going to talk a little bit about how we prefer to store our cards. I mean, there's a lot of options out there. So we're going to try to give you a bit of info of how we do that and also talk a little bit about some graded cards and whether we think we should be breaking them out of those graded cases or not. So yeah, Tanner, thanks again for joining us. How on earth did you decide to get into 90s collecting? Because I think we all enjoy hearing those stories.
Well, about a year ago, which I cannot believe it's already been almost a year, I decided to call it quits for super collecting Conseco. And that's kind of my quote unquote claim to fame, I guess, aside from creating custom cards and, reselling all kinds of different collections. But what I did at the tail end of actually selling everything, I started looking around the rest of the collection I had and go, well, if I could just keep some of these, which ones would I want to keep? And interestingly enough, like almost all of them ended up being like 90s to 2000s inserts and parallels. And I go, man, these things look great. They blow away the 80s, and they also really kind of blow away the newer ones, to be honest with you. I mean, some of the big patch cards and everything are really neat, but it just seems to get a little repetitive. And for Jose, there's not really a whole lot of really good patch stuff out there for him. So I started looking at other players as well, even in the 90s. I mean, because like Jose wasn't really in a whole lot of like all the inserts. So as I'm starting to look through the 90s stuff, I go, man, this stuff's really cool. Like this is like the coolest thing that's ever happened to baseball cards as far as I'm concerned. So that's really kind of how I got started.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think already we've talked a little bit about just how unique the designs are. And is that something that really stood out to you, when you were going through and saying, hey, like some of these designs really stand out as compared to what a lot of people are collecting nowadays?
Yeah. So the newer ones, they seem kind of like a copycat, I guess, of the genuine article, like the Crusades, for instance. Beautiful cards. They've tried to remake those several times over, but they don't even come close to the genuine article. You know what I mean? Like the Crusades are beautiful. The reds are obviously awesome, but the purples too and the greens. But there's a whole lot of, they just made so many 90s cards, so many different types. I mean, it's been really fun kind of discovering them for the first time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And something that Greg and I have talked about that I know we both noticed you doing is you're showing a lot of love on our group page for cards that are, we'll say common inserts. For instance, that you showed off the Focus Pocus card a few days ago, and I really have appreciated it. I don't know about you, Greg. I'm sure you'll agree, but he's been showing off a lot of cards that I think are being overlooked because they're not big time cards. They're not these monumental mountaintop cards that everybody's chasing. I mean, they're 1 out of 6 or 1 out of 8 packs, and they've got some really unique feel to them. Even those do. I don't know, Greg, you want to name a couple more that stand out? I got a ton in my head, but
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, a lot of us have trouble like actually showing the card and like giving it the proper lighting. And you've got a good system, Tanner, where you got that light, that really shining light that really focuses on the card. And so it's nice to see some of your videos or your photos where the light shines really well on the card. And I do appreciate that, because a lot of times we're trying to tell everybody, oh man, this card looks so awesome, I just can't get it to shine the way I want it to. And you've got like that good lighting system.
Well, and I want to give you all an example, actually. I think I'm probably going to I'm probably going to write an article on how to do it. I've discussed this a little bit with Matthew over there. I see him smiling. He's like, I know how to do it.
I tried it and it worked great, but I'm not saying anything.
So, first of all, let me tell you kind of one of the reasons why I'm showing off cards. I mean, I've got this case I'm actually on right now that's got like the coolest Conseco cards ever, right? I mean, nobody has these. There's maybe one or two people on the planet that has them or whatever. I don't really show off those a whole lot. I'm showing off the more common ones, not necessarily to say, hey, everybody, look what I have, but it's really to kind of allow people to appreciate those lower dollar cards and to look and go, huh, holy cow, this Jeter's only like $3.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ComC or eBay and pick it up, and I'll share in the joy. So that's really kind of what I want to do. But as far as the actual lighting goes, let me show you all an example of what Greg was talking about here. So here's this. It's a double refractor interleague matchup. So you got McGuire on one side, and then you have Bonds on the other. So it's kind of a cool card, but I mean, you look at it, you're like, okay, well, let me show you kind of what it looks like on my phone. And I tried this with Matthew before. I'm hoping that this will do the trick. So can y'all see my phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me press play on this. Is that showing there?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
So now it looks a lot better than doing this on the camera. So, it's all, and I'll show you all how to do that later on. But yeah, I think the presentation online, the thing that makes the 90s cards shine compared to, I mean, figuratively speaking, over almost any other time period is how beautiful they are. And the variances that we have, like this A-Rod, for instance, again, you can't see the differences or whatever, but the focus or whatever too well on the webcam, but this really does nothing for anybody, right? It's like, oh, they're kind of cool cards, but when you put them on the right lighting and everything and you show them online, it's like, huh. And there's probably a lot of people out there that are like, I actually have that card.
Right.
Wait, let me take a look. I didn't realize it was that pretty. And they pull it out and they're like, I actually have something special. And you don't have to have a one-of-one or prototype to really appreciate and enjoy collecting. That's kind of what I'm trying to tell other folks.
Yeah. When you have those cards in hand, you see, in person that shine. You got the light, you see it, and it looks great. So what you're doing, I really appreciate, because a lot of these cards I do have, and I see them, and then I'm trying to like share my passion, and you're actually able to visually show them the way we see them in hand. So I do appreciate that for the group. Okay,
well, I want to share the wealth as far as how to do it. So I'll write something up very soon, and I will share it with everybody. So that way, it's not just me saying, "Hey guys, take a look."
That's good, because I tried it out and it worked great. I think you have to have just like the right lighting and the right angle with how to do it. But I think I think it looks really cool. So thanks for giving me the info on that. And I'm excited for everybody to get that, because I think it's going to, shed more light on some of these cards that I think are a little bit underappreciated right now, which is, I think is normal with our group, because there's been a lot of, talk about certain big time inserts going around, which is usually what we're all chasing. But if you want to get into the 90s, you can do it for pretty cheap and get some really amazing looking cards. But, kind of going on, how the cards look, I think we should really jump in and talk about, we still want to have ways of displaying our cards that make them look nice. You don't want to ever take, the shine away from them or anything like that. And a lot of people, I think, store their cards away. I like to put some of them out, but let's talk a little bit about how we do that. I think all three of us store our cards completely different. So this is going to be really interesting if you're listening and you're thinking, okay, how do I want to, put my cards away, keep them safe, but also be able to, look at them without messing them up. I think we've got a few different options for you. So I'm going to throw it to Greg first. Greg, what is your preferred way? You get a salmon card in. Shout out to Tim Salmon. I know you wanted that. You get. Let's say you get that 24 karat comes flying in. What's it going to go into? What are you going to put it in?
So, real quick, do you guys show me on the big screen when I'm talking?
You are right now. Go for it.
Okay. I didn't see if I don't. Anyways, so my preferred method is top loaders and one touch mag. I use the Ultra Pro just for uniform. I want them all to be the same. Sometimes I have to do the pro mold just because the cards are too big. And so I got a few odds and ends in pro molds. But typically I use top loaders for the smaller stuff, and then my big stuff that I really, really enjoy and I want to look at, I do the mags. The issue I'm running across is the mags take up a lot of room. So suddenly your boxes are getting full because you got everything in mags. So I've noticed that I'm starting to have to get more boxes. But I will say, if I have doubles of something, I'll put them in the top loaders. And then my good stuff obviously goes in the mags. Now, with having said that, my mags, I actually use like a cleaner wax for the mag case. And so I will shine up the mag case, really make it really sparkly. Somebody even made a comment, I think it was Alan Chen, who said, "How do you get the mag so shiny?" Because I actually wax the front of the mag, because sometimes you'll get a brand new mag and it'll have scratches on it, or you'll see like that light. It's like I don't know, a glaze or scratching. But if it's small, the cleaner wax will actually like almost make it invisible. So I do that a lot with my mags, just so they'll shine. And when I take them out, I can look at them and it has that extra pop. And then after that, I will put my mags in I use this Perfect Fit. It's got the little recessed top, and I will put them in there. It does create a little bit of a glare, but it keeps the mags from being scratched. And mags are expensive, so I don't want to have to replace them because I'm accidentally scratching them all the time. So I do prefer putting all my mags in those little Perfect Fit sleeves, just to kind of preserve them as long as possible. And then once I go from there, I've actually moved from the shoebox. I'm trying to like use a little different method for storing, which has led me to, I've got two of these now. I've got wooden boxes, and as you can see, I had these custom done.
Wow. And
so the tops, this is my first top. I actually decided which picture to use. So there's a guy I've been talking to who will make these. They're not terribly expensive. It's just fun to put them in something that's not a white shoebox. They hold about 102 mags, around, give or take, if you're just using the standard 35 point. So they'll hold about 102. And I put everything that I want to look at constantly in these boxes. So I really appreciate them because I put them just on my desk, and it gives me easy access. I'm not looking for random cards and random shoe boxes. I know my wooden boxes have my good stuff, and it's fun to look at those. And then I have I hold my PSA stuff in here.
Nice.
And so I don't have much in there, but that's where my PSA cards go because they're a little bigger and they don't fit in the shoebox. You either need a special shoebox or you have to do something like that. So that's kind of what I do for my stuff personally.
Awesome. Well, because you showed off the suitcase, I think that's a great segue. Tanner, you were showing me when we talked last kind of how you store some of your cards in there, and also some of the cases that you use that are a little bit unique. I don't think anybody else in the group uses the certain cases that you have as well.
Yeah, so I actually use 3 different methods as far as card storage and display. Should I show all of them here? Do you want me to, or just the case for now?
Go. We'll start with the case, and you definitely got to show off. I don't want to give it away what it is, but you kind of showed a little bit. Those snaps, I think, are really interesting to see. So it'd be really cool if you could show those. But yeah, let's go for it, man. Go for the big case, and then let's go for the snaps too.
Okay. I have a binder to show y'all also if you want.
Oh, perfect.
Anyway, so here's the case that I have. It kind of looks like Greg's. It's a little bit of a different display inside. And I'll kind of do this number here, show you all what I have. And so this is how I display some of mine. So this is a shout out for the essential credentials there.
Yeah.
So,
very nice.
and then of course you have like, this. I showed you a video of this, by the way, Matt. Did you get that?
Yeah, I did. And you know what's so cool? Like you were saying, that card does not look nearly as amazing as it does in the video. So that, you're not doing it justice right now for sure. It's amazing.
Yeah,
incredible.
Some of these also like the cool thing. This has pluck and pull foam, and I was telling Greg about this before we started on the video here. But it's cool because you can actually take like this, for instance. So you see a Conseco Clark Dual Auto, and it just slides in. There's also a baseball that fits, and there's kind of a neat little cubby system, like a little secret thing where you can put cards underneath like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
It goes through, and I gotta say I love that so much. I really enjoy the system, and so I'll go ahead and shut this, and I'll talk a little bit more. But part of the reason why I did this is I started off when I was a super collector. I actually had nothing but white uniform 3-row boxes, everything in top loaders, everything in one touches, and it was all in order. And so it was great because the person, the organizer in me loved it, right? Because you know exactly where everything is. The thing I didn't like is that it was almost like you couldn't really appreciate it as much, So you're like, I want to look at all of my 86 Donruss Ray rookie versions together. So, all right, well, let me walk over there and I'll pull them. And so it might take 5 minutes to bring them out and just display them for 2 minutes and be like, oh man, that's so cool. And then put them back because I can't just have them out, right? They've got to be organized. And so it would take 15 minutes to put back in. So, and it was weird. It's like the 99 Fleer Brilliance 24K. I think it's 99. Is that right? 99 or 2000? Yeah. So I got it, and it's like you get it in hand. You're like, holy crap, this thing's amazing. And then you file it away. It's like, okay, well, that's it. Yeah. So after I sold most of everything, I wanted to make sure that I put everything that I really loved in this box here, in this case. And I'll open it again. And I'll show you kind of I forgot to tell you about the mini snaps because I did change from a one touch from one touches and top loaders to these. And there's a 24K there for you, by the way. Again, this webcam, y'all, it does no service to this card, but
well, don't worry. I have the camera on you only, so you can't see the jealousy in our faces right now of that card. So it's all good, man. Go for it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful card. But the thing was when I put this in like a one touch, and then I did what Greg did. I put it over, like put a little sleeve on top of it. Is it really kind of, you lost the intimacy of having the actual card in the hand. It's like, oh, here's a brick. Okay, that's kind of cool. Well, it actually feels like you're actually holding the card, right, and you're not worried about like messing it up or anything. So it's really kind of a neat feeling. It's much thinner than one touch as well. So I don't have any thing against one touches. It's just kind of like I've been there, done that. You know what I mean? Right. And I enjoy those.
So who makes those, Tanner? Who makes those snaps?
I know Ultra Pro makes some of them. Who's the other one? I don't recall.
Pro Mold and Ultra Pro, I think both do those. And BCW.
What's that?
BCW, Ultra Pro, and Pro Mold, I think.
Yeah, right, I've seen BCW. That was the one that I'd seen already.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. But anyway, so for my like ultra special cards, that's what I do is this case with those mini snaps. And I also have like one thing that I wanted to make sure that I did is I wanted to make sure that I had cards in binders as well. And so everybody loves binders, just being able to look through them and everything, but it didn't really fit my old way of storing everything, but I always really wanted to. But the problem was for binders is if you're a super collector or just any type of collector and you're going after like every single card, but you also want to have some of the prototypes in there.
Yeah.
You might have like a run of like, let's say your Crusades. Okay, so here's your binder, the pages at the top. Here's my green Crusade, here's my purple, here's my red. And then, you go down to whatever else there is, some 98 Pinnacle, whatever. And then you come across a Crusade that's the prototype. Well, what do I do now? Well, you take the next card and you've got to jump it over several for the binder for the pieces. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a binder system with no organization whatsoever. Like just put all of the fun 90s inserts. So this is what I've done. I did some custom binders. That's kind of has my cartoon and everything in there. I'll show you. These are by Unikeep, by the way. You can do these through custom, but
we should probably put links for that and the box in the description for this video in case anybody wants to check those out. So you got to make sure you do that.
Yeah. So you see, there's no rhyme or reason. As a matter of fact, I tried really hard to make this random because this is how I enjoy looking at cards. I love those. So that's kind of what I try to do with those. And I also do for graded stuff, my vintage graded and my, rookies, key rookies, they're graded also. Of course, I keep those in their PSA and SGC holders. But so it's really kind of like 3 different ways that I store and display my cards.
That's awesome. Well, before I don't really need to talk about anything that you guys have talked about because I think we have some similarities in a way, but I will say anybody who puts Crusades, green, purple, and red in a binder, we got to talk because that is not going to work, man. That's
Agreed.
I was even telling Tanner, you put a really cool video up with all these Bonds inserts, and he's putting like a 96 Ultra hitting machines in a binder. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can see like the little gear part getting caught on the page, and like I was my OCD was kicking in big time. I had to skip that part for sure.
I was sweating. I'll tell you.
but yeah, no, I mean. I do a lot of what we guys have already talked about. I've never done the snap cages. I think one thing that's not been talked about is before the magnetics came along, I think a lot of people use screw downs. I think that was a really popular method of storing cards. Not only just like, for instance, this is just a regular Ichiro rookie in a screw down, but a lot of people had these like brick screw downs, right? They had the really big case that's about 2 times bigger with 4 screws in it. They had that, and then they had the one that was like this thick, right, of that plastic, and you'd put like a really important card in there so you could throw it across the room and nothing would happen to it. But I think people started going away from those because correct me if I'm wrong, the cards started when you'd screw them down too tight, the surface of the card, like the front of the card here, would stick. So when you pull it off, it would literally peel part of the card off. Have either of you had that happen, taking a card out of one of these?
Well, real quick, I'll tell you my story. I had a Brendan Shanahan SPX Radiance, I think, and it got shipped to me in a 4-screw down. So when I unscrewed it, the Shanahan had stuck to the top. Before I even thought about it, I just kind of like pulled the Shanahan, and it actually peeled off part of the shiny surface, the holographic surface, and it stuck to the top of the screw down. Super, it was just a Shanahan card, so I wasn't too bummed. It sucks, but I wasn't heartbroken about it.
Well, as a Penguins fan, it's okay. He can mess it up. It's all good.
So, I actually looked. I was like, man, I wonder what I could have done. And I saw somebody recommended using a blow dryer. There were 2 schools of thought: use a blow dryer or put it in the freezer. I decided to use the blow dryer because I didn't want to put my card in the freezer. So I used the blow dryer for another card that I had that was stuck, and it actually like just popped off, and there was no residue, nothing stuck on it. But I was kind of bummed that the Shanahan got ruined. And I will say those screw downs, when I think it's human nature to want to make it tight, to screw it down kind of tight. But as a result, I know there have been some damaged cards, and some people are even kind of iffy about using one-touches. They prefer to put a penny sleeve on top of the card and then put it in a one-touch. I think it kind of dilutes the viewing pleasure when you put that
Yeah, definitely.
So it looks kind of plasticky. So I'm not a fan of that. I've not had any personal issues with the one touch, but I could see if you put a card that's like 40 point and a 35 point one touch, I could see that happening.
Yep.
Thankfully, I've not had any issues, but the longevity, that's something that you've got to see for the long term if it causes an issue. And right now, I've not had any issues with it.
Right. That's really good to bring that up. Tanner, I saw you nodding your head. Have you got a card off of a screw down before that way by using heat or cold?
Well, so, I've bought and sold so many collections in the past. So I've never personally had a problem where I put one in, because normally, for one thing, when those were popular back when I was a kid, I didn't have enough money to have cards that were worth that holder. Like, you think, man, that holder is like $5. What are you talking? Why would I spend $5 on a holder? I can barely spend $5 on a card, But because I've come into a lot of collections in the past, I've come across cards sticking in holders. I've also come across cards from the 90s being bricked. And if you all there, watching this at home don't know what the term brick is, it's actually like think of a big box of 1993 Stadium Club, right? So you're going through hoping for whatever's in 93 Stadium Club, Piazza and whatever, and you pull it out and it's a big brick. It literally is just a big brick. So you could try to break it apart, but the cards are going to be damaged. So the one way that I heard the best way to do it basically is just throw it in a freezer and see what happens. Just kind of take the bacon out of your freezer, and gives you an excuse to enjoy some of that, and try not to grill up some 93 Stadium Club, when it comes time for dinner. But yeah, basically that's really kind of, what I would do is, try to put it in the freezer. I don't know how much luck I had, because it was 93 Stadium Club. I mean, if it didn't work, it was like, oh, well, I mean, just throw it in the trash, right?
The perfect one to test it on, man. It's the perfect set to test it on.
Yeah. But, there's some out there like 93 Upper Deck, for instance, Jeter's in there. And I would be sweating that. Oh, please don't let there be a Jeter in here, But even what was that? That PMG green Michael Jordan out of 10 that sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It got an altered status on the grade, and there's some speculation possibly maybe that's colored, but there's also speculation maybe that it was in one of those holders, smashed down, and it actually made the card flatten out and maybe get a little bigger or something, which is interesting. So yeah, definitely be careful with those screw downs.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's about 5 or 6 different versions that were around, when these cards, when 90s were a big deal, when they first became a big deal. But I was hoping that my camera would show off. Greg, you mentioned Pro Mold, right? And I've got a card and a one touch here. I don't know if anybody's gonna be able to see the difference. So there's an Ichiro, which we're gonna talk about this card in a minute. And here's a Pro Mold. So, I mean, I know I got a shinier card here, but I think the glass on Pro Molds tend to be a bit shinier.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people tend to not use them. I think they're a little bit spendier, but they've got this little tab right here on the top. I don't know if anybody can see it. Probably you can't, but there's a little plastic tab right here. I think they don't fit in the one touches as well, but they definitely have a stronger magnet on them. And
oh yeah.
I've definitely considered putting all my Ichiro in these for sure. They definitely show off the shine really well. Shout out to E-Tops. These cards are amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so talking about that, I think I brought this card out, which I think will really help us go into our next topic. This is an Ichiro from 2001 Fleer Authority, and these came 2 rookies per pack graded. Like they were pre-graded and then put in the boxes. And so I had the pleasure of breaking out 5 cards, including this one, in one night out of BGS, PSA, and some other random grading company cases. Nothing that I've ever heard of before. So let's talk a little bit about our preference. Clearly, mine is to take them out of the graded cases unless it's like obviously a 10 or a BGS 10 pristine or a PSA 10. How does everybody feel about, how do you decide? What are you going to keep in? What are you going to pull out? Like, how do you go through that process?
You can go first, Tanner, if you want.
Okay.
Tanner's got an example for us too, don't you?
Yeah, I sure do. I've actually got a couple examples. So for the cards for Conseco that I want, if they're graded, it really doesn't matter what they're graded at. They're coming out. They're being cracked out of their case so I can have that nice little uniform. Everything's in the mini snap. I'll give you an example. This is a 1996 Select Certified Mirror Gold card. So this actually, guys, is the record holder, the record breaker for highest amount paid for a single Conseco card, by the way.
Oh, nice.
It was graded PSA 7. And so when I got it in, I was like, well, I've got to snap this, break this thing out. So I'm sweating bullets, of course, like when I'm doing it, just because like this is something, I've been looking for this forever. So, I'm kind of, nervously getting ready to crack it out. And I do. And I crack it out. And the interestingly enough, guys, is this card looks basically flawless. I don't know why it graded a 7 to begin with. Like, it was amazing. It was like the greatest thing that could have ever happened for it. But when it comes to other cards, I'll give you this is an example. This is one that I would not want to crack out because it's a key rookie. And it's not something I want to keep uniform. I kind of do because it does fall into the line of a key rookie that's, I bought because it was graded. I didn't want to get a raw version myself personally. I wanted a graded version because this is more of an investment for me for the graded stuff. So here's another. This is a different century, of course, but this is America's first superstar, sports superstar, John Sullivan.
Hey, that's from the 90s, right? Another 90s card there?
It's actually from the 80s, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
So obviously not going to crack that out. I've got Jeter, Team Tomorrow Pinnacle. This one probably is going to be cracked out because
that's a perfect candidate right there.
Yeah, this will probably go in the binder. It's a PSA 8. There's no real reason to keep it in unless I resell it down the road, which I will. Everything basically is for sale at some point, right? But I love Jeter, but it's not a guy that's like, oh man, I'm hoarding all the Jeter for myself. No, I just like the card. I thought it was pretty, and it's going to go in my binder. That's really kind of all there is to it. But this will stay. This already was, cracked out. So it really kind of depends on the card for me.
Man, I don't know about you, Greg, but I'm already sweating just thinking about pulling that mirror gold out of I don't care what the grade was. Like, woo.
I had the Griffey Credentials in '97. That was graded an 8.5, and I'm doing the set. So I don't want just some cards in a PSA case. I want them all just to be free and raw. So that was probably one of the highest cards for me that I've cracked. And I was sweating bullets. Like, I was super careful. Every move was calculated. That's like the hardest case I've ever cracked. Other cases I've kind of just nonchalantly cracked them and got the card out. But that one I was definitely careful with. And then I also had the Credentials Frank Thomas as well that I cracked out. I think it was an 8.5. So that was pretty nerve-wracking for me. My personal preference is if it's a 9 or higher, depending on the card, like just usually if it's a 9 or a 10, I'll keep it in. If it's an 8 or lower, I'm cracking it unless it's something that's kind of vintage or, I got a Larry Bird rookie that's a 7.5. I'm not going to crack it. That's just something that, it's kind of an expensive historical piece, so I'm not going to crack it. But the lower stuff, I think I have a Paul O'Neill 93 Finest refractor. That's an 8. I'm going to keep it in there. I've generally, like, lately I've noticed that I'm not a fan of the BGS cases. I prefer PSA. Just I like the style of the case, but I'm migrating towards raw cards now. I like them just to be out and open because you get the full effect, the full view. They're not a burden to store. That's why my briefcase isn't that full because I don't really get them that often. But I do kind of keep a 9 or a 10 usually, unless it's just a random insert from '96 that somebody graded. Then I will crack it. I actually had a Kirby Puckett autograph from 2003 that it was like a Upper Deck authenticate, like it came from an Upper Deck pack, and somebody they didn't even grade it. They just got it authenticated from PSA. So it's like a upper deck pack pulled autograph that was in a case like that big that was authenticated from PSA. So it was like double authenticated, and I cracked that out because it was legitimately like the biggest case I've ever seen for an already authenticated card, which I thought was redundant. So I cracked that, but I tend to like the raw cards most. So
Right. No, that's interesting. You know, you're talking about BGS cases, and when I broke that Ichiro out, they have the best case for cracking. I think you guys will both agree with me on that, BGS, because they put them in those little plastic sleeves, right, within the graded case. So when I think I had 2 or 3 that were BGS. When you crack those open and you pull them apart, you're not nearly as nervous, because if it snaps back on it or hits the card, if you're not being careful, you know, you got that plastic case, it'll probably protect it, and it's real thick. So, you know, when you cut that thing open, it's like cutting open a triple penny sleeve. But the PSA ones are tough. I had this A-Rod Legacy in a PSA case for about a year and a half. And Greg was telling me to keep it in it. It was a PSA 9, and he's telling me to keep it in it. But I had a mark on there, actually. There was a mark over here on the card from the case pressing down on it. So I was really glad when I took it out, that mark wasn't there anymore. So it was kind of like a pressure mark, you know. So let me tell you, taking that thing out, I just had to tell myself to go for it. I'd already cracked out 3 Ichiros, like, just go for it. So cut the corner, you know, got the butter knife and kind of just worked it and pried it open. And I was nervous. Tanner and I were talking about this. I was nervous to try to pry the whole thing apart from the bottom so it opened up, because I had a case. I had an A-Rod Atomic Refractor from Bowman's Best 99. I'm sure you guys know those cards. It broke 3/4 of the way down. The PSA case did, and it broke right on top of the card. And I'm like, well, this card's toast. Didn't even have a mark on it.
Yeah.
As far as I know. So I was lucky, but I didn't want that to happen. I was like, this card is it can't happen. So I literally like held it open and reached in there and slowly pulled it out. And yeah, I was sweating just like Tanner. I was nervous because I haven't seen any of those pop up. That's a row 1 from 97, and they don't pop up very often. So I was pretty stoked. But so I prefer, like Greg, I prefer to have them raw. But you know, I think, like you said, Tanner, having a key rookie, like, you know, if I had an Ichiro that was, you know, one of its bigger ones, like an SP Authentic or an A-Rod SP die cut, for instance, I think those deserve to stay in there. I mean, there's no reason to not keep those in there, but the majority of my cards, yeah, for storage and so forth, I like to just take them right out of the graded case. So yeah, you're always risking it, though. You know, those cases can be unpredictable no matter how good you think you are at breaking them. I've seen them do crazy things. Some of them don't break in the right spots. Some have been in there for 20 years and are kind of fused together. So yeah, I think it all depends. I will say, I don't know, I know you guys would agree here, I love when a card pops up on auction from some unknown grading company. You know, I'm not trying to bash them, but there's some out there. I swear, I got an A-Rod hot glove, and I like kind of was playing with the graded case, and just like came apart. I was like,
Wow.
What is this? I mean, with my hands, I pulled it apart, and I'm thinking, I love when those go up on eBay, because people see those and like, oh yeah, that's nonsense, you know. Yeah. So okay, this is going to be cheaper. And that EX Ichiro that I have actually came from a company I'd never heard of, and I was quite happy with the price on that. So yeah, I mean, have you guys had those experiences where those crazy ones come up from you know, companies nobody's heard of? I feel like you get a way better deal on those.
Oh yeah, I think they're less in demand. You're right, people do skip them over. And my preference is, if I get one of those, I'm cracking it. You know, that case means nothing to me. But you did bring up a good point that I forgot about, is like some of those refractors, when they're graded, they will have those little like pressure spots like up against the glass. So it almost looks like a watermark or something.
Yep, that's it.
And so I've got actually 2 refractors, like important refractors for me, that have those. And I just kind of deal with it. You know, it sucks, but I can't crack them. I'm not going to crack them.
What do you think, Tanner? I think you should pull them out. That's my opinion.
Dude, yeah, totally. So I was going to tell you, it's interesting. So since I do some custom cards from time to time, I'll have people that will send me graded cut autographs of Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, like some really heavy hitters. And so I'm tasked with actually cracking them out. I have to, for, you know, to create the art piece. And I remember this one time, it's probably one of the first ones I did. This guy sends over a Mickey Mantle autograph. And so I'm kind of like, you want me to do what? And by the way, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but there have been folks in the past that sent me like high-end one-of-one cards, like bat knobs and everything. They're like, hey, Tanner, I want you to create something out of this. So I'm having to rip apart these one-of-one cards that bat knobs and bat barrels and all this. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, this just doesn't seem right. I'm pulling apart. Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry. But this mantle, though, like it wasn't the scariest time for me to break this open, but it was right. It ranked up there because it was my first one. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, say, okay, how am I going to do this? I'm going to look at some YouTube videos to see how to do it. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go for it. And I put the slab off the side of my end table here. I smashed down on it, and the Mickey Mouse autograph goes flying across the room. I go, I go, oh no, what's gonna happen to this thing? So I'm like running over there, please be okay. And so I look up, is perfectly fine. But I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to do this ever again. And sure enough, I mean, I've cracked so many of those slabs now. I mean, the Conseco, the 96 Select Mirror Gold, I gotta tell you, like, even before I bought it, I had these like I remember laying there in bed, first of all, thinking, I wonder what it's at right now as far as price goes. What am I going to do if I'm the winner? Like, I have to crack it out, but how's that going to go down? Am I going to like make sure that I haven't eaten for a couple hours first, so everything's even and everything on me, and make sure my hands are not like what's going to happen? And so these are real things that that we collectors go through, guys. Where you always really worry about what am I going to do with this card, because displaying and everything is really is super important for all of us here.
Well, let me ask you, like, when you crack them, do you keep the things, or do you get rid of them? Like, do you throw it all away?
Yeah, so every now and then, I'm sure I keep them somewhere. One thing that was interesting, I ended up buying a collection, and I opened the box, and there was like a stack of these tabs from PSA or whatever. I was like, this is kind of strange. And immediately my thought went to, maybe this guy was doing something that he shouldn't be, like a little shady or whatever. And so I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird, but I didn't want to throw them away because it was kind of cool, because some of them were some higher end cards that had the labels. I go, that's kind of neat, but what was he doing? And here I am, cracking them away and everything and keeping them and putting them wherever. But I remember a guy came over one time to buy some cards from me, and I had those tabs in a box, and I remember feeling like, oh, like, I hope he doesn't think I was doing something, that I shouldn't be with these or whatever. Because, I think there's people that'll try to open them up and put in like fake cards or lower grade cards or something, which by the way is for everybody that's watching, like, you got to be careful with these as well, to look for frosting on the sides, because there are people that will open these up, put fake cards in or fake tabs or whatever. So you got to be careful. I think it's pretty typical for a few spots to have frosting, because whenever they clamp it down from the company, that just has to happen or something, I guess. But just be careful that like one whole side isn't or whatever. It's been a big deal recently.
Oh yeah.
Is there a way to tell? This is kind of new to me, honestly. Is there a way to tell when the card is, they take a picture of the card, the front and the back? Is there a way to kind of, if you zoom in on the picture, can you see it from the top if it's got extra frosting on it by any chance?
I don't think so. I think you really kind of have to look at it from the side. So sometimes when it comes to auctions and everything on eBay, what you really have to do for the most part is just, it's my understanding, I'm not an expert on this, but for me, whenever I buy a card, I have to really inspect the edges and, on it and everything whenever it comes here. And so thankfully eBay is pretty good about that. If you have a problem, to be able to send it back or whatever. But I don't think you can do it by picture. I think every now and then you can look at it and go, something does look wrong on this side, and maybe you can ask the seller. But I guess it's really a case by case basis.
Well, I wonder if when you're breaking it out, I'm sure you guys would have the alarm go off when you're cracking it. If it just goes and comes flying open easily, or like 3/4 of it breaks and it's like extra sticky on one side, like it breaks open from the side like this, I think you might see some red flags there, but at that point might be too late. So that's really good advice. That's something that's kind of new for me. And I think big time cards, when you're looking at those, $2,000-3,000 or more dollar cards or more, I think that's when you really got to be careful with checking on that. So yeah, well, hey, I thought that was a great discussion. I thought we really gave some options to people, not only for, talking about how to store your cards, but whether you should crack BGS and PSA and so forth. But we like to end our show every episode, Tanner, with like a pickup that you'd like to highlight. And you've been getting a lot of really cool stuff in lower end to high end, like a wide variety. Is there a card that you'd like to show off that you have available? I have one here. I can start if you want to grab one. But yeah, we usually like to end with a little bit of a highlight of a card that we were pretty stoked to get.
We're talking specifically 90s stuff.
I mean, mine looks like a 90s card, but it wasn't. We're talking, the guys, we could just, go with what you got that you're pretty stoked with. If you want to show off something else, go for it. I mean, it's our show. We're going to do it, right?
Yeah, I'll do one of each. Y'all can go first if you like.
Greg, I'm really crossing my fingers that you're going to show the one that we talked about, because the fraud is no longer here anymore, right? You're not a fraud anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, he's thinking about it.
I actually forgot.
All right, let me go then. I'll go first. This is kind of a cool card, Tanner, that definitely one to check out. I know it's not technically 90s, but it's got a 90s feel for sure to it. Some 2001 Stadium Club, and it's the Beam team insert.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Nice.
So the camera's even showing off the shine pretty good. You can see it. But what I like about it that I didn't know is behind it is see-through. You see my finger through there? There's these little cutouts. Yeah, so there's some really cool die cut action going on, some laser etching and so forth. This card is awesome, and I'm really stoked that I was able to get it. I offered the seller a little bit lower than I probably was willing to pay, and he accepted it. And really happy to get this. So this is one of the last A-Rod Mariners cards, like legit, before they started producing his Texas Rangers stuff. So A, I'm happy about that, and B, it's numbered to 500. So it's got all the 90s feel you need. Basically is a 90s card in my opinion. So that's mine.
That card is, I feel like, off the radar for a lot of people. It's very underappreciated. I got a Nomar for like $5, and that thing, like having it in hand, it does so much. It's die cut, it's holographic, it's got like a see-through aspect. There's so much going on with that card. I think there's 500 of them, and it's an awesome card. I think somebody in the group is actually doing the set, and that's an awesome set to have. I would love to have that set. Yeah,
I was very lucky. I mean, we all can agree. If you check your auctions, your saved searches quite frequently, you never know what can pop up for a cheap deal out of nowhere. And so, I've missed out on as many as I've gotten lucky with, but I was really, really happy about that because I know a few people have been chasing that card specifically. So it was really cool to be able to get it.
So I'll do mine. You brought up a good point. I'm not a fraud anymore.
Hey, Essentials Credentials.
97 Essential Credentials, Frank Thomas.
Wow.
That's my first 97 Essential Credentials. I got my guy. They don't have Tim Salmon, so Frank Thomas is my guy. It's beautiful, I do like the credentials better personally, but this carries with it so much weight. This is an amazing card. I was glad to pick it up. And then I got one other quick pickup. It's too shiny not to.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes,
that's right. Tanner's going to see another one of those real soon, hopefully.
All right.
There's so much going on. This card is it's so colorful, and the refractor version of it is amazing. I can't stop looking at it. I've wanted one for a few months, couldn't find one for a decent price. Lucked out and got one. So those two are my big pickup for the week.
Yeah, those sell for surprisingly low. I mean, I've been tracking some of the A-Rods, and they're going for $3-4 still, which just blows my mind. I mean, it's way, way undervalued, that card, for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, I saw a few Griffies selling for 10 to 25, but recently they've been hitting 50. So it's
nice. Good. And now they're going to go for $5 more because we're talking about them, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I want to show just in honor of this podcast here. I'll show my Conseco here.
Nice.
This only has popped up like once or twice ever, by the way. And so I actually sold this and I bought the same card back because I loved it so much. So I personally like this more. Like this is my favorite one in the entire run. So I like the Essential Credentials version myself personally. You see it's kind of see-through in the background. It's got the orange. I love it. But so that's not a recent pickup. So I'll tell you a couple of recent pickups I got. First, you can see over my shoulder here. It's an SGC graded 1887 Allen and Ginter N28 World Champion set. It's the non-baseball version. There's 40 cards, and it includes the pioneers of sports heroes in America. Like these are the guys that like did the first everything basically, which is really neat. Now they're almost all graded in SGC 1 for poor, but that's just because of the back. So the backs have some problems on them. The fronts are all like pack fresh, which is really cool.
Nice.
So that's really neat. But as far as 90s go, as far as 1990s go, I picked up a pile of 90s inserts, and I'll just show one. I'll do a video later, but this is probably my favorite out of all of them. It's a 93 Elite wire. It's extremely rare. It's out of 10,000.
Oh my gosh. That was cool back then though, man. A numbered card, right?
And interestingly enough, this will outsell other McGuires that are created nowadays. They're like numbered to 100 or 50 or whatever. So it's interesting how that works, how the demand for these are so high that it trumps cards that are significantly rare. So it's got a lot going for it. I really like the colors as well. I think they did a good job. This is actually my first 93 Elite card, by the way. So I think Conseco had like a 91 or 92, which I got that. But man, this is cool. It's got like the atomic or cracked ice kind of feel going for it on the borders, which I mean predates them by several years. So pretty cool stuff. There's a lot of cardboard for everybody, I think.
Oh, for sure, man. Those Elite series, I don't care what year you're talking about in the 90s. I think the designs are incredible and they're all unique. I don't think any of them look really the same. Maybe 92 and 93 are kind of the same, but I think they all are like significantly different along the years. And they look great. I mean, that card right there is where it kind of started, right? I think 93 Finest and the Elite series, they started doing some crazy things with cards, and it's kind of took off from there. So,
yeah.
Well, hey, Tanner, thanks so much for joining us. We had a great time having you on here. It was awesome to hear some of your stories. I know, you've got a lot more stories in your book, which did you show that off earlier? Did you have it in front for everybody to see?
Yeah, it's Confessions of a Baseball Card Addict right here. So it's on Amazon. You can buy it from me direct autographed as well. If you want me to deface it, I certainly can do that as well. So there it is. It's my pride and joy here. I'm super happy I've been able to share this with the community.
It's a big accomplishment, man. That's a good book.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome, man. We'll look forward to reading that, and yeah, definitely enjoy all the posts in the group. Thanks for showing off those cards. I hope you continue to do so, and yeah, I look forward to chatting again soon. Thanks, Greg, and thanks, Tanner, for taking the time out today.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see you guys soon.
All right, have a good one, everyone.